What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 4 of Straight to the Kokoro. I'm joined by Nathaniel Wolf, or Nate for short. Nate has a bachelor's in genocide studies, a master's in conflict studies. He's a high-level competitive powerlifter in the USAPL, and is just all-around great human being. So thank you for being here, Nate.
My pleasure, brother. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing really well. Oregon's always raining, and then 20 minutes later it's not. So it's Florida, but worse.
It's supposed to rain here tonight and be like about 100 degrees tomorrow. So
it sounds like what I've heard you guys have been dealing with roughly. So I know you're into anime too, because I saw when Spotify did its recap, as I expected for a lot of people that are in powerlifting, like Attack on Titan owns a large amount of real estate in people's warm-up songs. So like you can only listen to one song as you step onto the platform and do a third attempt. Which is it going to be? It can be from any anime, but I feel like I know you have that Attack on Titan bias.
wow, that's a tough one. I mean, for a while it was Shinzo Sasagio, bro. Like me and everyone else, like you couldn't go anywhere. Like you'd see lifters from like Leah in France, and she'd be playing that song, or buddies of mine in England and Israel. So I guess I would say Shinzo, but I mean there are some great ones. I think right now, actually, I mean, first of all, I don't listen to like the actual stuff from the animes, but I listen to the covers from Samuel Kim. Nice little plug. That guy just makes amazing covers. But right now it's the battle from the latest season of Demon Slayer, the final battle. You know, when I can't remember the demon's name, but the one with the scythes.
I feel like he's so forgettable because Daki is like very easy to remember. But
yeah, I mean, it was Daki versus that guy, but
I know who you're talking. I know exactly who you're talking.
It was like when the final bit, you know, Daki had lost his hand, everything like that. He's missing.
Oh, Tengen.
Tengen, yes. Oh, okay. I'm just
not the demon dude. The Demon Slayer corpse Hashira.
Yes.
Tengen. Yep.
But so it is basically that that last scene where they're fighting, and he could see the music. You know what I'm talking about? He sees the music and they're going at right there. That is the best scene in my opinion. And that music is just the piano going. It's just unbelievable.
I feel like they ended that season so well. Like his culmination in like that, the end of the arc, I guess, for that season was so well done with like his 3 wives and everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like I was like, this was really cool. Like
I mean, the whole entertainment district arc was I haven't seen as much anime as you, but that whole arc was just some of the best story, animation style. It was just unbelievable.
No, Mappa, who's the studio, if anyone's ever said that to you, like they crush it. They did like the Fate series, if you've ever heard of any of the Fate stuff, which actually, if you're really into history, you might like it because they use a lot of like Alexander the Great's in it, Gilgamesh, like from Babylonia, like you have King Arthur. You have all these different people from history that are like summoned back to different periods of time. But like the backstories are pretty good, and the animation is still the same. Like Mappa's gotten better because that Demon Slayer one, I know like people are losing their minds over the quality of that fight.
Oh yeah, I mean that fight, and then when Tanjiro is facing the female, that's Daki, right? The female demon.
Yeah, Daki's the geisha.
Yeah, so when Tanjiro is facing Daki, and he's like asking her why she's attacking the innocent, and she has those flashbacks from Kibutsuji. Kibutsu, I can't pronounce his name.
Muzan, yeah, Muzan.
Muzan. And she's having those flashbacks. I was just like, that's incredible. That theme also, that's another one I'd listen to going into a heavy set.
Oh, I don't remember that theme, but I know that I know exactly what you're talking. I'm surprised. I was expecting like I said, when I saw the I don't even want to post mine half the time when they come out because it's still all anime stuff. But I'm like, Jesus, like I listened to this song that many times.
No, so like I guess like it goes with what I've been watching most recently. So Demon Slayer, I think, has been a little more recent than Attack on Titan. And on top of that, you know, with the most recent final season part 2 of Attack on Titan, you know, the music was a little underwhelming for me. As great as the music's always been for that show, it's just been that season was underwhelming. I mean, Rumbling was a very unique, very cool opening, but other than that, I think Demon Slayer really took the cake for the last few months for me.
I definitely feel it. I feel like one thing I was thinking about before I had you on here though was like, given like your like Holocaust genocide studies, like I know you've been back to Israel. Like as I was watching Attack on Titan, the most recent season, and I was just thinking about like you have Marley, you have Eldians, and like Eldia. I was just thinking of like this guy had to have been influenced heavily by the Holocaust. Like,
Yeah, so Attack on Titan seems like has a lot of influence, I think, overall on the 20th century Europe, because you see World War I in there, you see World War II in there. And I mean, also you just look at the names of the main characters. It's like such European names: Reiner, Aaron, Berthold. I mean, come on.
yeah,
That's not a Japanese name. That's European. But so yeah, you can see such influence of European culture on that show. You look at in Marley how they treat the Eldians. They put them in ghettos. It's very similar to the Jews during the Holocaust. When I saw that scene, I'm just the parallels between the Eldians in Marley and the Jews in the Holocaust it's not a coincidence. You have them put into special sections of the city that are gated off and guarded by soldiers. I mean, you look at pictures from World War II, during German occupation of Poland, for example, in like Warsaw or Krakow, and you see the exact same images. You see this poor community that's outcasted, set aside. They have to wear those markings that separate themselves. You see that with the Eldians. And also the Eldians, it looks like they're wearing like a star, so it's the similarities are more than a coincidence, in my opinion.
I definitely, that's what I felt. And I know, like, especially, like I said, with your studies of this stuff and having been more involved in the history, I was curious to hear your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure also because I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk about, I don't know if it was Freud or Jung, if you're familiar with like both of them. But
Mm-hmm.
like he was saying, like I think like the Tiber family, I don't know if he was like Hitler at one point when Aaron like took him out, because Jordan Peterson was essentially saying like Hitler had at some points in these presentations, like he would address everyone at night with all these lights like facing upward
So,
miles high.
okay, so for the Tiber family, I kind of see two different things. I didn't think of it as Hitler, but I could see that. So Hitler, I don't think him only speaking at night thing is accurate. I mean, I haven't studied every single Hitler speech, so I can't I can't tell you yes or no. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, his most famous speeches and rallies did happen at night. You'll see them with the tiki torches, all the fun stuff. But Hitler was most well known like for his speaking. The man was an incredible public speaker. There's no doubt about that. There's studies have been done of people listening to him speak, and like their heart rate reacts the same way as someone listening to music. It's an art form being able to
Yeah,
speak.
it's powerful.
But to me, I almost thought of the Tiber family as a very ancient trope. First of all, the Tibers are Elbians, so that's very interesting. So that to me makes like it comes to the idea of like the Rothschilds family, or in a more modern sense, George Soros, this wealthy, powerful family that's actually controlling everything behind the scenes. It's a very old anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish trope of
Yeah.
the power, and that's why I think of the Rothschild family. They're part of the persecuted group of people, yet they still hold all the power.
Where were the Rothschild? I know the name from like history, but it's not coming to me. Like if you could
It's
explain
just,
a bit
so
more.
they're just a very wealthy banking family.
Okay.
And so there was the idea that they had so much money that they were able to manipulate everything. And so, you see all these old anti-Semitic tropes of, oh, the Rothschilds. Oh, like, have you ever heard the song from Fiddler on the Roof, If I Were a Rich Man?
I feel like possibly, but not like I can't like.
It's a song a poor farmer sings, like, oh, just imagine all the fun stuff he could do if he was a rich man. That song actually comes from a song called If I Were a Rothschild.
Mm.
So Rothschild is very associated with being wealthy and being able to manipulate power behind the scenes.
Okay, I did not remember that the Tigers were actually, that makes sense though, because they have one of the seven at one point. Damn, that's interesting, man. Where were the Rothschilds? In Europe somewhere?
Pretty sure Germany.
Oh, so they were Jewish in Germany and had some pocket of power essentially.
Not during the Holocaust. God, no.
Okay, gotcha.
No, the Rothschilds go back centuries.
Okay.
So that's just where I get where I see the influence of the writing of the Tiber family.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think all of Hitler's talks were given then. He was just saying in order to really drive home how powerful he was and his symbolism as a figure. A lot of times they were given at night, and then like you said, they had all those other things that set the atmosphere of that to make it so much more intense, that it was kind of here's this larger than life figure. I mean, godlike almost to some degree, possibly in some people's eyes during that time period.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely. So what got you your bachelor's being in what it's in, and obviously yourself being Jewish, what was your inspiration for going down that route with wanting to know, this is what I want to study, this is how I see myself?
So when I was 13 years old, I did a project where I twinned with a Holocaust survivor who was from Krakow, Poland. And that entailed me going to her home and I have a recording of her story still, and also keeping a journal. And so that was a huge influence on me. And then when I was 16 years old, I went to Poland for the first time, and I visited Auschwitz, Majdanek. I saw the Krakow and Warsaw ghetto. I saw Schindler's Factory, and a few other things. And then when I was there, I learned of Keene State College, which is where I got my bachelor's degree. And it was at the time, and I think still is, the only school in the country that offered a bachelor's degree in Holocaust and Genocide Studies. So I applied there, I got in, and that was what I did.
And where's Keene State?
New Hampshire.
Okay. And then you went back, if I'm recalling correctly, to Israel to do your master's.
Yes, that's correct. So I went to Israel for my master's. I saved a significant amount of money there. That's why. And so the school I went to for my master's degree is one of the only few schools that the U.S. military will send its officers to go get master's degrees. So I had classmates that were on assignment there from the U.S. Navy, U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force to get a master's degree in conflict studies or counterterrorism studies.
Was there anything through the process of doing all these studies, especially so many things that hits close to home for you culturally, that you kind of learned about yourself, maybe your family, looking back, or gained appreciation for in a different light?
Yeah, I mean, learning about all these different histories, being able to look at stuff side by side, whether it be, a personal experience or not a non-personal experience. That definitely was something I was able to pick up on. But yeah, so.
I can imagine that being incredibly intense, is the easiest way of describing that initial interview, especially at 13 years old.
No, I mean, yeah, for at the time, so going into this, I learned, when I was learning about what she went through, I watched Schindler's List with my parents. And we watched it because it takes place in Krakow and Auschwitz concentration camp. And that was where this woman I twinned with was from, and the first camp of the 5 camps she went through. And so I could not finish Schindler's List. I couldn't get halfway through. It's a very, very disturbing movie. And so they in that movie, they really focus on Eamon Goat, who's the commandant of the camp. And this woman I twinned with, she must have been 16 years old when she was going through all this. And she had a very personal experience with Eamon Goat. He set dogs on her. He was very notorious for being very cruel to the prisoners. There's a scene in Schindler's List where he wakes up in the morning, just grabs a rifle and is shooting prisoners from the balcony of his house. So she said he interrogated her and set dogs on her. And I mean, she probably held back a lot from me because I was 13 years old. She was 16 at the time when that happened. So I'm sure a lot worse things happened than what she told me. But as I got older, I kind of put pieces together and realized there's a bit more to the story than I knew.
Yeah, I mean, that's so so fucked up is the first thing that comes to my mind, like, and which, like, I guess to articulate that better, right? Like, so inhumane, like, on so many levels, that I know that's doesn't even begin to describe it, because it is indescribable from an experience standpoint, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I guess, where do you, for you, right, with like the work you're doing now and wanting to pursue work in government in the future, what do you want to do in your role, or what do you want to kind of bring to, if you could do anything, maybe you haven't thought that far into the exact way you plan to navigate that.
I mean, I would like, to do something that makes a difference. Which is very cliche and very like a blanket statement. But the thing is, there's so many different ways to make a difference, which is great. I would love to work in the U.S. government. I'd love to work in specifically like Homeland Security and immigrations, and make it easier for those fleeing persecution and coming here for asylum, like work with that in some sort of manner. So that would be an amazing opportunity. I come from a family of refugees. My family came to the United States in the 1920s. So I would love to, carry on that legacy of working to make, this place a beacon of hope. The Statue of Liberty, give me your tire, give me your poor. So, I mean, what's more symbolic than that?
No, I think that's a really noble cause in terms of that, especially with, people do see this place as that beacon of hope, and where they have more freedoms than they're going to be able to have in a lot of other places. Like, obviously, and I think that's something people like miss a lot of times. Like, right, like, we need enough structure, and everyone can't just like roam rapid, or roam free, like, where there's no restrictions and laws governing society. But, like, I think people do have the most mobility in their lives here out of a lot of other countries, at least from what I know and what I've been told.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure.
Cool. Very cool. Do either of your parents work in any of like the related fields that you're currently?
Yeah. Yeah. Both my parents actually work in some sort of manner there. My mother works for the Brennan Center at NYU Law School, which works on right now they're working on voting rights and stuff like that, and helping minorities be able to vote. And my father works for Homeland Security in immigration as a lawyer. I don't know the exact description, but I know for a while he was a deportation lawyer for ICE, and he's moved over to I believe it's like a consulting lawyer, helping defend the United States from immigration-related lawsuits.
Very cool. Okay, so yeah, it's like stuff that's already kind of very close to home for you, that you have some models for.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know, like, we initially met through powerlifting. I'm pretty sure it was Adelante, right?
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
like before everything.
Yes.
So if you have to think back kind of like on your beginning journey of lifting, from like, I know you've been with Neil for years,
Mm-hmm.
like, and your current, like, having just done the Arnold Sports Festival like 2 months ago, I think,
Yeah.
roughly, if my not,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
like,
a little over 2 months.
yeah. So, like, what have you in that time, like, how has your relationship to training changed? Has your love for training deepened at all, to the degree that, like, you now look at it different? I guess, yeah. How's that relationship really evolved for you? Because you weren't at the level that you are now competitively when me and you first met.
That's for sure. So I got into powerlifting in 2017, my senior year of college, after doing about a year and a half of like bro lifting. And so I was getting strong as a bro lifter. I was, hitting 225 on bench for a few reps. It was cool. It was before everyone could do 225, so it was pretty cool to me. And I had a buddy in college who had been powerlifting competitively since high school. And so I started talking to him more and more about it, like getting his advice. And eventually, I started to realize, this was fun, but it's something I wanted to do a little more. And so I reached out and I got a coach who is still my current coach today, almost 5 years later. And so I've been with Neil since then. And when I first joined him, he asked me what my intentions were for powerlifting. I was like, I just want to be strong. I don't really care to compete. Like, in my mind, like, if I wanted to compete, I expected to go out and win. And so I in my mind, I was like, why would I go compete if I can't put up numbers that would put me in the national level? And he talked me out of that mindset real quick. He's just like, you're out there to compete with yourself and no one else. And I guess that's something that we all know nowadays. So when I first started, like I said, I was missing a little bit of a competitive edge because I played lacrosse for 10 years in my childhood, and I went to college and I wasn't playing any sports. So I needed something to give me that competitiveness. And so that's where powerlifting came in. And as I started to compete, I then moved to Israel right after my first competition, and I continued to lift out there. I found a powerlifting gym out there, made some friends lifelong friends. Um, Came home after a year there, competed, and then went right back to Israel again. And once again, went right back to that gym. And now I had this relationship with these people with this gym. So I was welcomed with open arms. I was a regular there. In fact, I made a deal with the owner. I bought him a bar from a Rogue for a year of free membership, and couldn't have been a better idea because then I got a good bar too to use. And then so along my journey, my fiance is from England, so I would go see her a lot, and I've made powerlifting friends out there. So I now have like a worldwide web of powerlifters that I'm friends with, which is great. And then towards the end of my time in Israel, I got to compete out there, which was incredible. I came like 2 Wilks points off of winning best lifter at the meet, to my best friend in Israel, who's an incredible powerlifter. And I came home and I I came back to the States, continued to lift, and then over the last year and a half since I've been home, we've really seen my abilities to rise, and that's where we've let's see, that's where we are now. We kept training to the point where I competed in my last local meet, totaling 770 kilograms, which I believe is 1,697 and a half pounds, because who wants to total 1,700 anyways? And that got me qualified to go compete at the Arnold Pro. Well, it was the Pro Raw. No, it wasn't the Pro Raw. It was the A7 Raw Challenge at the Arnold Sports Festival. And, that was just an incredible opportunity because I had never saw myself going to such a thing. I was surrounded by such insane athletes. My favorite story from the Arnold is the second day I was there, I peed next to Martins Lisis. He was in the urinal next to me, and I have never seen a bigger human being in my life. That man was an absolute tank. But yeah, I saw some of the world's best powerlifters. I saw Ray Williams. I saw Ashton Rauska. I saw Amanda Lawrence. Just these incredible humans with incredible feats of strength. And I almost felt like I had imposter syndrome. I'm like, why am I here? Like, what have I done to deserve this? And I had to be, my coach had to talk to me several times. Like, you're here because you've earned it. You wouldn't be here if you didn't qualify. So that's my power story.
For sure. No, man, it's awesome to hear you have like that community, because I had no idea about the people in England. Like, It's funny, my boss Connor, who actually he doesn't coach, he helped one of these guys. His name's Will Pickering.
Okay, that rings a bell.
So like Will's really, really good, like too. And he helped like Will when Will was dealing with some stuff because Will's coach had reached out to him. But it's cool to hear that was kind of your progression through it. Because like I said, I had no idea. I knew the people in Israel that you were training at. Because how far was the gym, if I recall? That was like a journey to the gym.
Yeah, so my first year I was living in a city called Netanya, and that was about depending on the time I left, it was 30 to 45 minutes to get there by car. And so I would travel each way. And when I was going, it was like May and June, and those summers got really hot. So I would spend like 7-8 hours there because I can't just go, do a top set and then just take 2 minutes rest and jump back in. I'd have to take 15 to 20 minutes and like chug a ball of Gatorade because I was sweating so much because it was like 115 degrees in the gym.
They didn't have air, if I recall, right? It was just like open.
No air conditioning that first year, but the second year they moved to a different location that did have air conditioning, which was great. And so that second year I lived in Tel Aviv, and that was a lot easier to get to. It was about like a 25 minutes by car or 30 minutes by bus. And the bus stop happened to be right around the corner from my apartment and right across the street from the gym. So like it worked out very well that it was a much easier commute.
Okay, very cool. Because I remember in our like one group chat, we used to just get the updates of like your journey to the gym, or I think a couple times like the video footage from the gym with like
There
stuff
was
happening.
there was some characters there. Yeah, I think I have a video of this one kid. He like tied a resistance band to a pull-up bar and was hanging upside down for like a solid like 5 minutes, and we were just kind of like staring like, what the hell's going?
Was it like hooked through his hips?
I don't know. It was like he was like holding it. It was weird. I have no idea what was going on sometimes through these kids' heads. And then actually towards the end of my time there, my second year, I switched gyms because, you know, it just, the travel became unbearable in the heat. And then on top of that, you know, there were those characters there that I just didn't want a part of. So I switched gyms to another gym that wasn't technically a powerlifting gym, but, you know, they had all the right equipment for me. So I'd go and train there. And funny enough, actually, since I've left, that gym has now become a powerlifting gym. You know, they do have calibrated kilo plates. They have power bars. They have they only have comp benches. They don't have comp racks. But, you know, I still keep in touch with the owner of that gym. And I tell him I like to take credit that you guys have switched to a powerlifting gym, because before I went there, no one there was powerlifting.
I do think like on that note, like it's been crazy to see how much the sport's grown. Like I did my first meet when I 2015.
Mm.
And then like I just remember like at that point, like I don't know, like 74. And I know the weight classes have changed since then in the last year. Like a 70 or even like a 74 or 66, like deadlifting like 500 would be like pretty damn good. And now it's like that's like
Yeah.
it's like my grandmother can do that. Like
So
it's
yeah,
not that impressive anymore.
it's actually incredible seeing how the sport's grown over there. You know, when I was over there and I competed, it was in this janky federation, you know, that has been accused a lot by some of the lifters of like corruption, in that, you know, they'll favor an athlete, give them a white light. You know, I saw a video of a recent competition there where the judge was not even looking at the lift, talking to someone, and the lift ended and he just put up a white flag, like the white light. And it's just like, how is that legitimate? So
Yeah.
two guys over there took it into their own hands and created their own federation, and it's stunning. It looks like USAPL quality meat. They shipped out, I think they shipped out 2 Rogue combo racks and a strong arm combo rack. They have power bar out there. They have comp plates, and they put on a full meet, and it's done very well. They did. They got all their judges did a Zoom certification with I don't know who it is, but I'm pretty sure it's from like the USPA or WRPF. And so, you know, they have the backdrop and everything now. And it looks incredible. And like they had over 300 people compete, and it's just absolutely incredible. And, you know, a lot of them, I look at the rosters whenever they do it. And I look at the rosters and the records because I actually hold a record in Israel, which is pretty funny to me.
That's pretty cool.
I don't hold any American records. I hold a New Jersey record, and I hold an Israeli record, but no national American records. But so when I look at the roster, you know, I want to say like at least half are teens and juniors, and that's just so cool to see. Like, because they're the future of the sport in every sense of the matter, and the fact that half of them, like, you know, I've started following a lot of them, and, you know, they're out there lifting, and yeah, they're not putting up these insane numbers that you see teenagers in America are putting up, but that doesn't really matter because they love the sport. They're so passionate about it, and all they want to do is get better. And I'm so happy to see it grow like that, especially in this country where they don't have anything like that. They don't have USAPL. They don't have IPF. I mean, they don't have any international presence there of powerlifting. So to see it grow in such a manner, I won't be surprised, you know, if this federation that they made gets a IPF, IPL, or WRPF affiliate, becomes one of the affiliate with one of those 3. So it's just an incredible thing to see how it grow.
I feel like what was the last part of that? Sorry.
I was saying it's incredible just seeing how it grows.
Yeah, and I feel like the newer generation, like you said, like that's the biggest thing I've noticed with USAPL, even though I don't compete anymore and I really don't coach. I mainly deal with movement stuff. Um, like with people I do still follow, right? Like they have a lot of these athletes, if it's coach, like a lot of these athletes are younger, like
Mhm.
probably like, late teens to like mid to late 20s, I would say. And
Yeah.
they're like putting up numbers that like, the probably the previous masters weren't doing when they were that age. And that like, the fact that like right now a 75 has the highest of all time like
Mhm.
totals is insane. Like pound for pound, like Taylor, I believe, right, has the
Yeah,
highest
he's like the highest Wilk
pound for pound.
spots, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
of all time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that just goes with, the evolution of the sport. And as we learn more about like exercise science, I mean, it's the same thing with different sports, whether it be like endurance sports, like you look at running, cycling, all the sports like that, numbers that we put up now, whether it be in lifting, running, cycling, etc., would have been unheard of 15, 20 years ago, and so on and so forth. So I think it just comes with the evolution of everything.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been interesting, like I know you do some of your accessory to go to like training, some of your accessory work is like you do belt squat, you do some other stuff. I know Adelante um like did just get like machines within the last year or two and cable systems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much Neil gives you on that stuff, but like I've seen a huge resurgence in like the last 2-3 years of like, machines at one point were bad, then machines weren't bad, and now it's kind of like this middle, like even in terms of your off season stuff that I have followed, like you're doing trap bar deadlifts, like a lot of people are doing these things when they're not close to competing that are
Mm-hmm.
offering them more longevity and variability compared to their normal training. So I'm curious if you could comment on that and like if you've noticed any of that since you first started in the sport. Because I know when we both started at Adelante, like you were just
All we had
you were on the rig or you were
dumbbells
on
and
the
barbells.
what's up?
All we had were dumbbells and barbells to do accessories with.
Yeah, life was tough.
We were, and there was the pulley on the ceiling. That was it.
I never got to use the pulley. I know which one you're talking about.
But yeah, no, I mean, I very much enjoy like the bodybuilding accessories, using the cables or very specific machines. But yeah, I've seen that like I guess evolve in my training from when I first started. I don't know if it's whether it's because of my accessibility to the machines and stuff like that. It's changed a lot, but I definitely feel better, going into these accessory movements with all this special variation, using a leg extension or a leg curl rather than doing an ungodly amount of split squats.
Yeah.
Like as great as split squats are and the progress you can see with them, a little change is never bad. And just being able to, hit the very specific parts of the muscle from, doing the leg extension and just shifting your leg a slight way to hit a muscle even more specifically. So, I mean, I don't have any backgrounds in exercise science or anything like that. I just
No,
lift.
no, no. Yeah.
So I can't give you the deep down technical stuff, but I do see a difference with how my accessories have evolved in that, one, I look bigger, and two, I feel stronger, like rather than, like I said, I'll squat and then go and do split squats and then lunges and RDLs, and my legs are fried from that because it's just the same like 4 movements every leg day rather than, switching it up and being able to do curls, extensions, still keeping the split squats and all the other stuff in, but being able to add these different spots, being able to control my fatigue basically
That's
is
what I was most curious about.
a huge aspect of it.
I mean, because the bigger thing for sure, like, is one thing that, like, all things held constant, like a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. But
Mm-hmm.
like, that's what I was really most curious about. And that's where I've seen the variety kind of come into place, or that variability is like people feel healthier typically, like the fatigue's easier to manage. They don't run into some of the overuse issues that they do just doing, the regular comp movements. year round at that frequency with maybe very specific accessory work.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was what I was curious, and that's exactly what I figured. Because I know
Yeah,
you've definitely also gotten bigger since the last time you tested.
that's
Just
for sure,
been
man.
eating your Wheaties.
I'm the biggest I've ever been right now. I'm loving it.
What are you right now?
I'm like 255.
Damn, dude. I'll tell when you're ready to cut, I'll take some of that weight.
I don't know if I'm actually going to be cutting into my next meet because it's a the next weight class down is 242. So
Okay.
that's a 13-pound cut. And like, I'd have to be pretty aggressive with that. And I'd rather, just maintain, go into the 275 weight class and just have fun and put up some fun numbers.
So I think that's something that could be kind of cool to talk about is like I think one of my biggest mistakes as a lifter early on was just cutting weight for meets. Like
Mhm.
I was constantly like 6 to 7 pounds under like what I needed to be at 163.
Yeah.
Like I was eating on the line to weigh in because I remember Tim was like, "What the hell?" Like I was eating a sandwich waiting to weigh in at our first meet together.
Mhm.
But like for me, and I'd be curious to hear if this was anything you went through. Like if I didn't cut, I would have probably in the long run, I would have been so much better. I probably would have ran into less issues, and it would have just probably yielded me a lot more longevity. Like I said,
Mhm.
less injury and just an overall better long-term progression. So I don't know, like, did you cut a lot in your
Yeah.
early meets? Did you
Yeah.
kind of just keep
So
going?
for in the last year, I've done 3 meets. 2 of them I cut for, one I didn't. The 2 that I cut for, I did not see a PR total. And I missed a number of lifts that I shouldn't have missed. And the one meet I didn't cut for and just, bumped up, it was my best meet yet. And so with that, there's also the length. You see like the high level lifters who are able to cut a ton of weight going into a 2-hour weigh-in also.
Yeah.
But there's the big difference, obviously, the 2-hour and the 24-hour.
Yeah,
And
24
so,
is a whole lot easier.
I mean, 24 is a lot easier, but you also see the guys going to 24 weight cuts dropping 25 pounds. And because they don't care, they just want the Wilks dots, whatever score. And they'll drop all that weight, shoot the IV in, and be 30 pounds heavier the next day to lift. Whereas, I mean, you look at some of the best lifters going into the 2-hour weigh-ins, and they're still able to cut like over 10 pounds and still compete at a very high level. And that, I think, is very underrated in the top level lifters, is being able to cut the weight and then step on the platform and still perform. And that's something I've learned I've had trouble with. I've successfully cut 13, 14 pounds on a water cut to make weight for 2-hour weigh-ins. It's just then my performance gets that hit. So
Yeah.
when
I
I did the Arnold, I cut about, I want to say I wound up cutting about 14 pounds through the water cut. And so I weighed in at 108 for the 110 weight class, and I totaled 762.5 kilograms, which is 7.5 off my best total.
okay.
But because of my weight, the body weight difference, the Wilks score was the same. But so if I hadn't done the weight cut and I just, strolled on in at weight, whatever, bumped up the weight class, strolled on in, I could have probably added 10 to 15 kilos to my previous total. So I think with that, it just comes down to how well you're able to recover and turn around so quickly from the weigh-ins. And that, I think, is a very, very important skill that is very overlooked.
I would agree with that. I think there's like a huge psychological component to it too.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously, like right, you have the physiological weight cut, and that's going to change like how you can perform, if you can rehydrate, if you take too much sodium, especially with the 2-hour windows, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like a lot of people that I know, especially that are in that upper elite tier of lifters, right? Like they've done it so many times, they're really good at gauging how it goes, and I guess they can reflect on their past experiences and understand like, okay, this is what I'm gonna feel like. And for some of them, it's probably so normal that it's no longer like it's not a hindrance. Where I think for other people, like there can be that anxiety about making weight, especially if you're someone that rides on the cusp.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like we know too, and you just said there's a 12 pounds or 14 kilo difference between like or no 12 pounds 14 pounds, right?
Between the weight between
Your
myself,
current weight class and like the next.
it was like 13 pounds between me and the weight class.
Yeah. So like if you end up missing, like hypothetically, or someone ends up missing, like that's a big jump to take into like any next weight class.
Yeah, exactly. So in my mind, I'm also like, I'm not going to win any medals on the national level. So I might as well be where I'm at. If I feel healthy and happy, just stay where I'm at and just continue to increase my performance.
For sure. And I feel like you guys have a really healthy rivalry from what I've seen with like you to like, is it like Tom is in the same weight class as you, or is
No,
Tom
I'm in the weight class above him, Nick,
okay.
all of them. Yeah, Hassan, Jorge. Okay. There's that 4-person rival in New Jersey.
Yeah.
For me, no, there's really no one I know of. Like in the 110, there's Kevin Hayes, he's just a really nice kid. I've spoke to him a lot over social media. He's very strong. He's, I believe, competing at nationals, and he and I were the top of the 110s. And I'm going to bump up to 125 because I was a heavy 110 to begin with, and he was a light 110. So he's good. I'm giving him free reign of the 110s for now.
Okay.
But I don't really know of any 125s out there in New Jersey at least, who have a total near mine. I'd have to go like look at the database and see that if there's anyone really like that. But the next strongest person in New Jersey, in USAPL at least, towards in the heavier weight classes, I can think is like there's Michael Evans at the 140 weight class. And then there's a guy who none of us had ever heard of in the super heavies. He's got to be from South Jersey because when he's post his training, he's always at Dan Campus in Philadelphia.
Okay.
But he is a Jersey lifter, and he has an 1,000 kilo total. Damn. As a super heavy in the USAPL. So that was very under the radar, but I think the cream of the crop of New Jersey powerlifters is definitely probably around the 90 and below weight classes.
I would say so. I feel like that's honestly for me in terms of my enjoyment of even watching the sport. Like I enjoy supporting all of you guys that I know, like you, Mike, like I know Tom and Nick, and like everyone who's in those weight classes. But I would say like the most entertaining for me is probably like, what is it? Is it 81 kilograms?
82 and a half now.
82 and a half. Like the 82s and is it 90 or what?
Yeah. I think it's 90, 82 and a half, 75.
Yep.
I want to say 67.5.
I think you're right.
And then I don't know below 67.5 because when you get that small,
I feel like the 90 and the 82.
Let me rephrase what I said before. The cream of the crop of New Jersey powerlifting actually is the lightest weight class women. We have like 4 or 5 women in those weight classes who have pro cards in New Jersey alone. Like there's Allie Weinberg, who I think she's competing at 56 or whatever those lightweights are. There's Demetria, who is newer to Adelante, but she has a pro card. She competed at the Virginia Pro, and she's in like the 48s.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. There's Solana. Who,
I know Solana. I should have known that off the top of my head.
I feel like I'm missing someone else, but yeah. So the New Jersey females are definitely like the top of New Jersey powerlifting.
That's true. Yeah. I know Allie because she like trained with us.
Mm-hmm.
The other newer ones I didn't. I know Solana, and that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I guess that's easier to think about. Like, I know like at one point when I was really early, like Solana was really like, and still is really high up there. Dallas was like one of the best 74s at the time. Or no, Dallas was a 66.
He was super light, but I don't know if he lifts anymore. So, or at least competes. I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I haven't seen him in years. So
yeah, I'm just trying to think back to like the last like.
I mean, there was Nico just, I think he just competed again for the first time in a long time and placed 7th in the country in the 75s.
That's ridiculous. Jesus, man.
But he's no longer New Jersey. He's Texas. Tim had a very good total. Tim was very under the radar in 83s at the time because 83s were always, dominated by Russ and Sean.
Yeah.
But Tim was always very under the radar in that weight class, just a very good lifter.
probably like what, top 20, I would say.
Top 20 or 30 for sure.
Okay. I mean, I feel like that's the thing that people like when we talk about like the very, very top like of the weight classes. Like you do have your people like Russ, Sean, you have Taylor, Atwood, like Ray, and oh my God, the Vanilla Gorilla is escaping me.
Oh,
Blaine,
Blaine
Blaine,
Sumner.
Blaine, like yeah, like there's those people that like we just oh my God, David Ricks, if I'm recalling. Like
Yeah.
you have LS in that weight class, and then the
Yeah.
dude from Texas who's oh my God, David Wilson, I think Wilson.
The guy who squats basically doing a split, right?
The super wide squat, but like incredibly good deadlift. Like, I mean, his squat's really good too. It's just like obviously, yeah, extremely wide stance squat.
Yeah, I think it's a one of one squat right there. I don't think anyone can, not even Sean Noriega can mimic that width.
Hey, all that matters is it's good, right? Like that's all that matters. Like I feel like those people are just always notorious within like my mind as like this is who you're gonna see in the primetime fight if they're within that federation. Like,
for sure.
And it's like that's generally how they have a very long shelf life in the sport too. Or career, I should say, like in terms of how long they're able to train, which says a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know we've talked about like powerlifting, some anime, the Holocaust. If you're not doing, you're studying and training, because I feel like those are and work, like consume most of your time. What are you typically spending your free time doing?
Just hanging out, man. I've got a lovely dog, a lovely fiance, so it's spending time with them and just nerding out, watching TV. Like that's my guilty pleasure right there. Just nerding out, watching TV.
What like is this anime when you say nerding out, or is there anything else?
Oh, for sure. There's definitely anime, and there's other things in there too.
You gotta tell me. I gotta ask now.
So. Of course. I mean, this is an anime podcast, isn't it?
Oh no. I mean, it could even be the other stuff. Like I'm just curious.
So right now it's dominated by Star Wars. I am a diehard Star Wars fan. I have a little Star Wars wall over there that my fiance put up for me for my birthday. I love it. It's my custom lightsaber I made at Disney for a lot of money. It's a framed the framed poster for Empire and a Star Wars hat. So it's like my little wall. It's the only wall I get in the apartment. But so yeah, because we got Obi-Wan Kenobi coming out a week from today. So right now I've been rewatching the animated show, The Clone Wars.
I've seen it. I actually really liked it.
Oh, I love it. It was made for children, but it's also made for like just Star Wars fans in general. So like if you're able to get over, the dialogue or the animation, like it's an incredible show. It brings so much depth to the universe of Star Wars. Listen, you're gonna get me geeking out right now, man.
Dude, fucking do it. No,
I mean, you get characters. This is something I love about this universe is you get characters who get maybe background screen time of less than 5 seconds, and they're given whole plot lines in these shows. For example, Wolf Yularen is in episode 4 on the Death Star. When Vader's talking to everyone and they're talking about how great the Death Star is, there's a character who's seen for a brief split second. He's wearing a white tunic and has a really nice mustache. And that's all, no lines, nothing. He's just in the background. They gave him the name Wolf Yularen, and he is in the entirety of Clone Wars. You know how it opens with a little like background of what's going on, like the person giving the talking about like, oh, war in the universe, Yeah, that's Wolf Yularen speaking.
And this is like when the like captions are moving upwards on the screen.
Yeah, but so rather than doing that in every episode of this show, they just have someone talking.
Okay.
And the character that's talking and giving you the update about what's going on is Wolf Yularen. And he's given, a prominent role as the admiral to Anakin Skywalker. And so you get all this background on this guy that's been in the background for 5 seconds of one movie. And then on top of that, like when you delve into the books, which I have, he gets even bigger roles and stuff like that. He's in the sequel show to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. It's incredible what they can do.
So you're not the first person that's told me this, because there's a dude that trains at the gym we go to work out at, because we don't lift at our own gym. We'll get no work done. We'll get no lifting done. We'll get a lot of work done. But this dude is explaining to me like the lore of Star Wars and like the whole like, the dark side and the light side, and like it goes so deep that he was like explaining it to me. He's like, you have to look that like these characters aren't even given screen time because they're not at these points, I guess, in movies if they ever go there. But like to your point about the books, they're referencing like the only person to ever master like both sides and all this other stuff, where I'm like, holy
Revan. He's talking about Revan.
like
Or like no. So for example, there's in episode 4 when Luke's family buys the droids, and they're saying they're looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Luke only knows him as Ben Kenobi, and so eventually you learn Ben Kenobi and Obi-Wan Kenobi are the same person. And so what we've recently learned in the Star Wars universe is that the name Ben comes from we learned in a book that Ben was the nickname Obi-Wan was given by Duchess Satine of Mandalore, who in Clone Wars is Obi-Wan's former love interest. When he was an apprentice with Qui-Gon, he was on a protective mission with Duchess Satine, and they fell in love, but they were too dedicated to their missions. Satine of progressing Mandalore, and Obi-Wan to the Jedi Order, that they never pursued it. But they both openly admit that they loved each other and would have abandoned all their ideals to be together.
That's
and so she gave him the nickname of Ben, and that's where all that comes from. So like I said, all this little depth from just all these little bits. Like another one I love is in episode 1, The Phantom Menace, when they're on Tatooine, and Jar Jar Binks shoots his tongue out to like get some food, and the vendor goes nuts, and there's a whole like little fight breaks out. There's a guy sitting behind there, there's a bunch of people sitting and watching it all occur, and there's one guy who has like a yellow line across his face, and they gave him a whole story. They gave him a comic book series. It turns out he's a Jedi also. He was there on an undercover mission. He gets a whole little plot arc in the Clone Wars. It's just incredible what they do.
That's pretty funny. I mean, no, I love the subtlety of stuff like that. I mean, especially as someone who like, I don't read as much manga or like webtoons as I watch, but like I'll go back to Attack on Titan because like I know that's like what's super familiar relative to this. But like Aaron's like the scarf symbolism, like if anyone's got into season 4 or part 2 of season 4, like
if you listen to an anime podcast and you've gotten this far in Attack on Titan, like your loss.
I feel like it's become so mainstream, which is cool, but like the symbolism of the birds, like if you've watched the ending to that, or even actually it's in the opening too, like there's a bird cage, I believe, in the ending.
Yeah.
And probably. Like you have all the like they're alluding to like freedom, and like you said, like we have all the historical stuff. And even Attack on Titan, like I know the 7 are based off of the 7 realms in Norse mythology, and I believe that's where like Ymir's like the link between everything, that's like Norse mythology too.
Yeah, so Ymir comes from Norse mythology.
Okay, I didn't know exactly, but I know like that tree also, like
yeah. So I'm not an expert on Norse mythology by any means, but I know Ymir definitely is a Norse Viking name of some sort. So yeah, Attack on Titan definitely has those aspects of it.
Yeah. So even all of that stuff, like that's what I love about it. Because I've definitely read stuff where it's like, where even they like tease you with characters where like they did something that's ridiculous and world shifting in some place, but like they don't tell you anything else other than like you get 5 minutes or 5 panels of like this guy or this girl did this thing and forever changed the world. And it's like, what's their backstory? And it's like, eventually you'll get there. It's like,
so I can think of that. Like, so the first anime I ever watched was first real anime, like that got me down the rabbit hole, was One Punch Man. And, there's that brief, like 5-second scene where they're talking about Garo, and you're just like, oh, he sounds like not a not good person. He sounds like a bit of a dick for beating up everyone, getting expelled from it. And now he's the biggest villain of the show. And they alluded to him for like 5 seconds.
Are you caught up on the manga by chance?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So Yeah, I'm not gonna.
I know, because I've read a little bit of it online, but not a lot of it. But I
Okay.
know it gets even crazier after where they finished season 2.
Yeah, and I feel like Garo's character, like anime does a really good job, I think, of making you initially thinking this character is this particular way, and like you have this taste of like this person's a villain until they go into the backstory and the motives, and like my favorite still, I think, of all time is like, or not favorite, but like one of the best is Itachi, right? Like
Oh, for sure.
Itachi's character, you literally like, I loved him as a villain because he was
He
so
was an awesome
calculated. He
villain.
was
Yeah.
one of the smoothest characters, and he was just very singular in his like perspective of the world and everything. And then like when you get to the end of the show, like you're just like, this man really put the team on his back. Like,
Oh
let
yeah.
alone the team. Like,
So Naruto's was an absolute journey for me.
I remember you watching it at the front desk.
Yes. So Naruto is an absolute journey. So I watched One Punch Man. I was talking to my buddy from college about it, and he's like, "Oh man, you have to watch Naruto. It's awesome. It's great. It's as, in his words, it's as good as Game of Thrones." I'm like, "Wow,
It's better than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. You know
yeah."
what? Both endings were ass pulls, like the immediate ending. So
But that's the thing with anime is like you're able to world build so much more than live action. And don't get me wrong, I love things in live action. I think it's so cool. I love both. But the
yeah,
fact of the matter is, in anime, you can do so much more. You can set it anywhere. You can have these characters do these incredible. Like you can't have these fights on water in Naruto and film that in real life. That would look horrible. Like, but and that's what I loved about Naruto and going into it, and was just the ability to world build and like see these powers they have, and just and I enjoyed it. I loved it. And so anyway, so my buddy told me, it's as good as, if not better than, Game of Thrones. And so I'm like, I bet let's do this. And so I started from the OG Naruto because I didn't really have a lot of anime exposure as a kid. I had Yu-Gi-Oh, I had Pokemon, Digimon. That was really it. I never got into Dragon Ball or early Naruto. And so I started from episode 1, season 1, before when he had the green goggles up there.
yeah.
And
I have volume 1 in Japanese behind me.
that's got to be worth something, I'm telling you right now. So I started there, and the first 3 seasons of OG Naruto took me a long time to get through, because it was very slow, especially like from the one until like once I got to the trials, like that's where it started to pick up. But like those first bits, it was just so slow. I wasn't really enjoying it. I would watch like a bunch of episodes and then take like a 2-month break from it.
Yeah.
Then I get to Rock Lee versus Gaara, and I'm like, all right, this show's actually pretty cool. I get Neji versus Naruto. I'm like, all right, yes, this is what I'm here for. I'm here for the fights. And then, then it slows down a bit. You get, their Team 7's first few missions, all the fun stuff, Naruto and Sasuke's relationship building. But I'm still taking a ridiculous amount of time to get along. And then I get to when Sasuke leaves the village. I'm like, all right, these fights are awesome. And you get Rock Lee versus whatever the guy's name with the skull.
Oh, Kimimaru, like the dude with the bone.
The bones, yes, the bones.
Kimimaru, yeah.
And he pops the alcohol pills, and we get drunken boxing. And before I had watched any anime, I had seen Legend of the Drunken Boxer, the Jackie Chan movie. And I'm just like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Because like you get what Jackie Chan was doing, but you put it on steroids, because you get, these crazy, the bones flying everywhere, the bone missiles, all that stuff. You get the animation style. It's unbelievable. I'm like, I know this is great. And then you get obviously Naruto versus Sasuke at the waterfall.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, this is great. And so that's where I stopped the OG Naruto, because I was told the rest is filler. You don't need to watch like the last like however many episodes. Just hop into Shippuden. I was like, all right, I'll hop into Shippuden. I hopped into Shippuden in Israel, and I was cruising along, and then I get to the fight with the Akatsuki where Azuma dies.
Hidan and Kakuzu.
Yeah, with Asuma.
Yeah.
And I text my friend who was the one who told me to start watching Naruto. I'm like, dude, what? I'm like, I thought this was a cartoon. And he's like, bro, you have no idea. I'm like, all right, I'm in, I'm buckled in. Let's do this. And then like from that point on, I just trooped. And I watched from, I think Asuma dies around what, like episode 80 of Shippuden.
Probably. I was thinking like early hundreds, but you might be right. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I went from, I think I probably watched that right when I got back to the States. I got back to the States in July. I finished the show in October.
That's nuts.
I went from episode 80 to episode 500 in 3 months. I was putting in the work, and I was just like, this show isn't like, I was blown away. You know, like Jiraiya versus Pain. That was, bro. I watch a ton of shows, a ton of movies. I have never cried as much from a show than I have from Naruto.
So you need to go watch Angel Beats. It is one adorable, but it's like a musical based anime. But the ending is literally like I cried hard. Like,
dude, I mean, so like
13 episodes.
You know, like when Jiraiya dies, like that's just sad in general. But then like Naruto's reaction, how everyone reacts differently, and you're just like feel all that pain. Different parts when you learn about like Kakashi's history, like that's just painful, all that stuff. But nothing made me more emotional in that show than when in the filler after the show really ends in the filler, and when Naruto asks Iruka to give him away at the wedding as his father. Bro, I was in tears. Like I had tears going down my face. Like I was just like, fuck. How is an animated show going to get me this fucking emotional?
Dude, you I mean, you watch Haikyuu also, so like we're not gonna go there right away, because I just want to say, like, I think the two depths that I could easily think of and the repercussions afterwards, like you said, Naruto dealing with Jiraiya passing and like that depression, and then like when Asuma dies and then Shikamaru deals with Hidan, depending on how it's pronounced.
Oh yeah.
But like when he lights the lighter, and that's all I'll say with that. So if anyone sees it, like that scene was amazing, because like obviously, like you said, right, like that's his, like that was his mentor. Like in a lot of ways, it wasn't his father, but like even Shikamaru breaking down after that and his father's relationship to him, actually, as I now think about it, like so beautifully done. And his dad, actually, they did a great job from a father figure role of like, his dad's like, what do I do now that he's broken? If you recall, he's like, I help pick up the pieces. Like,
oh yeah.
So fucking good.
Oh yeah. And then like, just on top of that all, like, so I tried to watch Boruto. I could not get into it.
You gotta skip a chunk of it.
I could not get into it. But when I wound up reading somewhere, I read this, and like just reading this, I was just like it played at the heartstrings. And it was that the name Boruto translates to like bolt or nut. And and Neji is like also translates to something similar. I forget the exact translation. So it's actually the fact that Boruto is named, he's not named after Naruto, but he's named after Neji.
That's really cool.
Are you kidding me? Like that's awesome.
So that's one of the other things that like I always try to debate on how much to spoil for people, but if they're this far, we'll just say fuck it. Like, but that depth like was also one of those ones where it was like,
I was shocked. That one shocked me. Like I was texting my buddy. I was like, dude, are you serious? Like, did they really just do that?
I think the fact that like Neji also though was that character development of like Naruto changed a lot of people, but like
he was like, but like we had seen him from like the early episodes all the way through this. And then also like, I don't think we think about it enough is they're what, 15, 16 years old.
Yeah, he was 16 when he became Hokage. And
they're child soldiers. Let's be real. They're child soldiers. And this motherfucker just got a bunch of spikes in the back and dies. And it's just like, shit. And like, you don't even think about the age, first of all, but like
they distort it so much though, right? Because like Itachi is probably 18 and like, or not even, well, we won't even go Itachi. Like half the kids that like Orochimaru recruited are probably like 16 and they're like diesel as hell.
Or it's the same thing in Demon Slayer. I'm pretty sure like Tanjiro is like 14 years old. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, that's at least he's not that bad because he looks like a kid. I know,
oh
like have you ever seen Tokyo Revengers?
no.
Okay, so if you watch it, it's like there's this motorbike gang. I'm not going to go into it, but it is straight up like it's basically like it's really violent. So this analogy is not to say this is the context, but like High School Musical is a bunch of like 25-year-olds playing 18-year-olds. Like this is a bunch of sixth graders with the muscle tone of 28-year-olds. They're in a motorbike gang, and it's like, where did they get these resources? First of all, but also like everyone's fucking like chiseled. Like it's like, yeah, he started lifting at 6. Like
Yeah, so like the anime I'm watching right now is called Yowamushi Pedal, and see, it's one you don't know.
it is one I don't know. What's it about?
It's about a high school bicycle team. So just a little background about me. Like my father is very big into cycling. And so I grew up every year watching the Tour de France with him. So I got really into watching cycling. And so I saw that there was an anime about like competitive cycling. I'm like, because I watched Haikyuu, I'm like, I bet I'm gonna watch this. And it's really enjoyable to me, at least. And but like the fact, like there's some guys like on this high school bicycle team that look like, they're just absolute bodybuilders. In fact, there's one character in the show whose whole thing is his muscles. Yeah. And like his pecs talk to him, and his like when he's riding, when he's going to sprint, like how like everyone will shout out like their special move, like super finisher. Like one guy's like what's he called? He's like oxygen speed bullet train and something like that. And so this one guy, he'll just bike and he'll just be like abs, 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 and he has names for his pecs, and it's Frank and Andy, and like they'll tell like something's coming. He's like it'll show his muscle twitch, and it's like, Frank, what is it?
That's ridiculous.
It's hilarious because these guys are supposed to be what, like junior? He's supposed to be like a junior in not even a sophomore in high school, and it's just like he looks like he's cut from stone.
Well, I mean, that's really cool. It parallels to your dad's love for cycling and like you growing up. I think the most impressive thing for me, because I went through this when I watched Haikyuu, which for anyone listening is a volleyball anime. Like I was like, there's
one of the best animes out there right now.
It is really heartwarming. It is really good. And like, I think this is what I was going to say a second ago. Like, I was like, how the hell are they going to make one match like a whole season, which is season 3? Bro, at the end of that season, I will just tell anyone listening, if you think you're like, there's no way it's going to be good, I challenge you to watch this, and then I'll have you on this podcast if you could at least get through that much of it, because there's no doubt that you'll finish.
So my love story with Haikyuu begins in England. I was taking a train. It was like a 4-hour train we were on, and I've heard good things about it from other people from our gym. So I downloaded a few episodes from Netflix onto my phone, and the entire train ride, I did not pay attention to my fiance. I was glued to it. Just the first season, and that show, it's so different from the other animes I watched, because all I watched were Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan, Naruto, One Punch Man. So I was very much into these action ones that like show these things that like you can't really capture with live action shows or movies. But then I watched this, and it's volleyball. It's high school volleyball. And like I was telling my roommate in Israel about it at the time. I'm like, it's a show about high school volleyball. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's a show about high school volleyball. I'm like, dude, you just don't understand. This my roommate, he's my best friend. He refuses to watch anything animated, whether it be anime, American animation, whatever it is. He just can't watch animation. But I'm like, bro, this is the greatest show I've ever watched. And I still hold firm that it's my favorite anime I'm watching. It might not be the best, but it's my favorite. And that's because like there's so much relatable to it as someone who played a sport in high school, and just knowing how much, like, when you have that first love of a sport, like it never goes away. And how Hanada like grows with volleyball, I love it. But everything about that show, it's so good.
I just really think like even some of the team dynamic of like it's not this ideal thing where everyone meshes and anyone can say like, yeah, but there's actually like enough conflict between people that it's like, like I just remember I didn't play football for a very long time at all growing up. I think I played until maybe 7th grade, maybe. And like there were people who literally strongly disliked each other that were like in tackling drills are like, I'm going to drill this person.
Oh yeah,
Like,
in high school lacrosse, man, we like if we had beef, we went behind the coach's back, and after practice, we had locker room boxing. You threw on your helmet and gloves, and I participated in that a few times, and you beat the crap. And then when you were done beating the crap out of each other, you were good.
and I think the thing I can think of, at least in my case, I don't know. I guess that was sometimes the case, I would say, probably because you had the respect of each other, and it wasn't even about like, you just handled it differently, right? And I don't think people know how conflict is really. I mean, shit, you can speak to this. Like, conflict is really challenging for people to handle, even if it's not physical contact. Like, I think a lot about this stuff because I enjoy reading psychology stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like it's uncomfortable, right? Like, a lot of us, I think, don't want to feel the things that don't feel good, even though those are the things we need to be able to evolve as people and to also like really be able to come into who we are more.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you see that in Haikyuu with Hinata and I can't remember the setter's name. What the
Kageyama.
Kageyama. Yeah. I mean, you could see them. They're best friends and they hate each other.
Yeah.
And Yowamushi Pedal has a very first of all, Kageyama and they're in Yowamushi Pedal, it follows this kid named Onada and Sakamichi Onada, and he basically gets recruited to the cycling team by chance because he's biking up this hill, this crazy hill that this kid, this guy, crap, I can't remember his name. There's so many different names, I can't remember them all. But he's training on this hill because he's an incoming first year also, and he's like a prodigy, and he's training on it on his road racing bike, and he's crushing it. And meanwhile, Onada's biking up the hill on, as they called it a sissy bike in the show. But it's the bike with the high handles that like has a basket in front.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's biking up the hill and keeping up with him. They're like side by side going up, and he's just like, this kid's incredible. And it turns out he becomes this superstar on the team. They recruit him. He becomes their mountain ace. He's a climber, because in cycling you have 3 different kind of riders, at least in this show. When you get into professional cycling, you don't just have these 3 type of riders. You have a sprinter, all around, and a climber. And the climber specializes in the mountains, and then the sprinter specializes on flats, and the all around, he's good at both, but he's not great at both, but he's good at both.
Yeah.
And so basically, Onada, who's the main character from the show, becomes their mountain ace, their climbing ace. And they have 2 climbers on the team, and they have 2 different styles and all the other stuff in cycling. But basically, what I love about this show is Onada and the all around guy whose name escapes me at the time is I can't pronounce it. I'm not going to try. They're like, but first of all, the all around guy and Kageyama are identical. They're identical. But Onada and the all around guy are best friends. They love each other. It's great. Whereas Hanada and Kageyama can't stand each other, but they're also best friends at the same time. It's that competitive best friendness. But then in Haikyuu, I love also the conflict that comes with Suki. I loved Suki. And in the season you're talking about where they're having that crazy long match, that scene where Suki goes up for the block against the ace, and he has that flashback memory from their camp where he's talking to the veterans, and they're like, it will come. There's just that one moment, whether it'll last a split second, but when that one moment comes, because Suki doesn't give a fuck, he doesn't care, and I'm not.
No, yeah, dude. I mean, I just got chills as you were saying, like that one moment.
One moment that will make you fall in love with the sport, and then it cuts to the game, and he goes for he gets the block, and he comes down, and Suki's quiet. He doesn't give a shit about volleyball. He just does it because he's tall. He comes down and he fist pumps and he screams, "Yeah!" I remember watching that. I'm like, "Where's my brick wall to run through?" I will watch that scene going into the gym because of how much that scene resonates with me. And like, that's the same thing with powerlifting. It's like, we do all this lifting, we grind through all this work, you go in and you do a gajillion reps of bench, squat, deadlift, accessories, all this stuff. And there's that one moment, and it won't come. It might not come on the platform. It might come in the gym, but where it just something clicks in you, and you're just like, yes, like I love this thing. And that will come to me, like I will do like a triple on squat of a certain weight, and it will move so well. And that's when it clicks in my head. And I'm just like, yes, like, and I have that moment. But like I could still vision that scene where he just comes down, yes, and everyone's shocked, and like there's a scene where like one of the managers like faints because of how like uncharacteristic that was. I'm just that scene made the entire season, in my opinion.
I feel
That's
like
a lot, because that season was incredible.
So the one that's burned into my mind is like the final, where like they have the animation of everyone being held down and the seniors are helping like lift the opposite team's ace off. But like to your thing with Suki, right? Like I think, and especially your own, to parallel it to your lifting, I think when I hear that, what I immediately think of is like the sport is so process oriented, right? Like yeah, we have goals, but like who gives a fuck if you care about squatting like 495 at the end of the year if you're not putting in the reps each training session to be able to get there? Like, there's the other thing. But I think especially too, because I had that, like, I would say for me, I had a period in which I was deeply in love with it. And like, I'd go to Adelante knowing full well, like I would spend 4 to 5 hours there because it was both a social experience, a training experience. It was everything. And then we'd go out to like eat and stuff. Like,
and then like just going off of that, just thinking back to my days of lacrosse, I was a goalie, and there would be like you'd go into a game, you'd make your saves, you'd let some goals in, but every now and again there was that one moment. It might be a save, it might be something else. For me, there's one moment I remember. It was my sophomore year when I was on the JV squad, and we were playing, I think it was A.L. Johnson, and I was in goal, and the other team had the ball, so we were on defense, and I was reading how they were passing the ball, and I just dipped out of the goal and intercepted the ball and went all the way down the field, cleared it. I think we scored a goal after that. But, it was just that I was so hyped up after that, just because, I just did that one little thing that just made me love the sport even more.
Can I ask you something off of that? Like, if you can recall this, like, so did you happen to do that, or was it after you did it you realized you did it? Was it like automatic, like something instinctually on you was just like
an instinctual click for me?
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't start out as a goalie in lacrosse. I started as a defender, like with a long pole. And so, I was taught to read passes, try and knock down passes. But when you're in the goal, you can't leave the goal. But I was able to read enough of what they were doing that I dipped and just took it. And, that just still sticks with me. I was a JV lacrosse player. It doesn't matter. But in my mind, that was in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But in my mind, that moment, that click in my head, I just remember coming to the sidelines, just like pounding my chest. I was just so hyped up. The team was hyped up.
Oh, you're froze, dude.
In Haikyuu, just emulate that to me.
You froze for a sec, but you were just saying like, or actually, I guess maybe it's my internet. It says it's mine. But like, no, I resonate with what I heard you say, which is like that one moment, right? Like, because when I hear that, what I immediately think of, at least in my training experience with lifting, was just my first deadlift. Probably, actually, no, my one deadlift at 584, which was my second meet, because I had like become a fucking hermit, basically. Was just training in my house. And then like the culmination of like 10 months of just training like nose to the grindstone was a third attempt that let me win the only gold medal I've ever gotten in anything. And I won by half a Wilkes point to the dude underneath me. And that was just like, I was just so fucking, I literally jumped up in the air. It was like, fuck yes. Like, it was crazy.
I mean, yeah, that happened to me last summer with lifting. I was having some crazy deadlift progression, and it's what led me to my first 700-pound deadlift. And what number did it was like I doubled 683 in the gym. And I've never had a more, like, I put the weight down. I was screaming. I was jumping. I was so excited. Like, and that's exactly where it was. Like, I was just had that yes moment.
I think that's, yeah, it's such a beautiful thing because it's like, I feel like you can only recognize it once, like you can recognize it while it's happening, right? But it's so organic in nature that like when you have it, you just know
Oh,
that.
absolutely. There've been times where I force it. I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Like, this is awesome. Da, da,
Yeah,
da. Like to get like just to get myself hyped. But there are other moments where it's just comes so naturally to me. Like it's just I put the weight down and I'm just like there have been times like fist pump, jumped up and down. There have been times I like literally cried because I was so happy. Like I was so happy I broke down in tears.
I mean, no, dude, I feel that even with like when I haven't done a lift yet. Like I know there are days when I'm in a certain headspace, the conditions are right. Like I walked into a gym like I'm ready to crush it, right? And like from the moment I like snap my belt and like go underneath a bar for a squat, like I'm in a different headspace.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
and then people, and typically, you know, with that intent, people will also be like, damn, that was way faster than like you needed a spot for what? And it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's just different, right? Like you're just in it, you're in your element and you're like fully
You're just
committed to
fully
whatever
there.
that is.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like another like going back to me being emotional, like in that same season when they win the game and the seniors like are in such disbelief and crying and they
Yep.
tackle each other. I'm just like this is if you're listening to this and you haven't watched Haikyuu, you have to watch Haikyuu. It is my favorite anime out there. There's just so much to love about it, and like as like you and me as people who compete or you used to compete at least in this sport. Another thing about that show is watching like Hinata's drive to always get better, because like
Yep.
and the whole thing about him in the show is he's this small guy who doesn't necessarily fit your typical volleyball player. And he's just constantly grinding. He sneaks into that elite camp and has to, they make him the janitor for the camp. And he just stays for hours after practicing and getting like coached by like the other players. And it pays off when they're in the inter high.
Yeah.
Like watching that show made me a better lifter because of watching the dedication he has to volleyball reminded me about how much I love the sport of powerlifting and how much better I just want to be better at it.
I feel like that's like honestly probably why it resonates so much with people who do like our sport, if
Mm-hmm.
not even people in other sports that maybe I haven't connected with as much yet. But like it like a lot of them is the hero's journey just portrayed in such a more relatable way, or even like I haven't done enough reading into like Carl Jung stuff, the archetypes, right? But like it resonates with you because you could parallel it to something you've experienced, and it's
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I think that what they do a better job of, like than the live action stuff, is just maybe it is because it's animated. There's more space there, and we're picking up more on like the underlying message and the language rather than like the person's facial expression to the same capacity, right? But like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like when I hear like the background, the history of things, like most live action stuff doesn't do it in that same way. And like reality TV is too inauthentic in most places in my mind that like I don't know. I've seen clips of, and this is about the second or third time I've mentioned this on this podcast on the fourth episode, but like the Bachelorette or the Bachelor, and I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
someone's like, I really pulled that out of you, and I'm like, pull shit. He told you he likes dipping sauce because McNuggets. Like, this is not a deep like versus like Naruto dealing with Jiraiya passing away, meeting his parents for the first time.
Oh,
Hinata.
that you want to talk about not having dry eyes, bro. When he meets his dad, like I got emotional. When he met his mother, man, I was in tears.
I
Like I texted my mom after that episode. I'm like, Mom, I love you so much.
Dude, yeah, it was the only thing I can't forget out of that scene though is his mom has like Sakura-ish tendencies.
Oh yeah.
Like and that
I think they did that. They definitely did that on
oh
purpose.
for sure. I mean, that was who she was like portrayed to kind of be, right? But
Mhm.
no, I feel that. I mean, I had like there's a show called Death Parade that I mentioned in the first podcast. It's 12 episodes. It does a really good job of explaining human nature. Or not even the capacity of what humans can do. And like episode 8, like this burns my mind. It was during COVID. There was a lot of shit going on for me, and I just remember like breaking down crying. I couldn't tell you why until I later like unpacked it, but like it's
Mhm.
just this very basic scene, and like I was just like, holy shit. It takes place in purgatory. That's like the
Oh
basis for
wow,
this.
yeah, okay.
You're there, you get essentially you get all your memories wiped, and you're forced to play some kind of bar game or arcade game with another random stranger. And one of you will get reincarnated, the other one goes to the abyss. You have no context of where you are, so neither one knows they're in purgatory. You
Mhm.
just woke up in an elevator and woke up in a bar. Like, and it's really the end range of like these people regaining their memories at segments, as well as like what happens when you push someone to an extreme, right? Like a really good thing that my mentor and friend Ellis just said to me, as well as this is from Jordan Peterson, like maybe God didn't create a world with evil, he created a world with the capacity for evil.
Oh,
And
for sure.
like, oh, go ahead, you want to say something, go
Yeah,
for it.
of course. I mean, this comes back to what I studied. You know, humanity has the capacity for doing the worst of the worst, the most terrible, evil things. I mean, if you, I can show you this right now. Is my bookshelf. I'm not gonna pull that up, but you know, I got right here: genocide, confronting evil, becoming evil, crimes against humanity, the failures of ethics, dancing with the devil. Not dancing with the devil, shaking hands with the devil, which is about the Rwandan genocide. And the absolute sheer capacity of humanity to do the most evil things, but also to do the most noble and righteous things.
For
You know,
sure.
you have people in, we're going to go to the Holocaust because that's where
No,
most of my
dude,
pieces, but
go.
you have the capability of people, you know, who there's a book by Christopher Browning called Ordinary Men, and I believe it takes place in it's nonfiction, but it's about, I believe it's in Belarus, and it's about this police force in Belarus who became an extension of the German army, hunting and killing Jews. And the book's called Ordinary Men because that's what it's about. It's these ordinary men and women who would go home to their families every night, have dinner, kiss their kids good night, and then the day go out hunting for other human beings and executing them. But at the same time, you have human beings who who risked their entire life,
I,
not just their entire life, the life of their family and friends, for taking a stranger in and hiding them in their barn or hiding them under their floorboards. And you really got to see how the wide spectrum of humanity, from the darkest the darkest and the dark to the light to the light and everything in between.
And I think with that, no, I think that was a beautiful summation of like the both extremes. I'm happy you also touched upon the positives, so no one's listening and they're like, these both of us are like narcissists. No, like not even nihilists, right? But like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
what's the word? It's gonna I'm gonna forget it, but like yeah, I think that like really shows, because I've heard of like that Ordinary Men story. I think not in
Mhm.
like the book itself, but I've heard that there was like these ordinary, and then I've also heard the opposite extreme where like you've had these people stepping up in times of war that were just ordinary people in a village, in a city. And
Yeah.
I think of like, I haven't read all of it, but A Man's Search for Meaning,
Oh my
like
God. That's one of
Victor Frankl's
that is
commitment.
one of my favorite Holocaust memoirs I've ever read. That
I
is
have the book too.
incredible. That's an incredible book.
But
I love it for multiple reasons, but you know, oh God, was it Man's Search for Meaning where he's talking about them like smuggling a Torah in and studying?
I I don't recall. The thing that's etched in my mind is he's talking about how they had no heat and they're all just huddled together, like they're just trying to survive. Like even how he, like you didn't have a shoe too fucking bad, you're walking through the snow, like the hardships they had to endure, and the things they did to just to stick together.
Oh, for sure. And then also on top of that, though, is the idea of surviving, surviving. And so Primo Levi, who's one of the most famous Holocaust survivors and authors, he wrote a book called Surviving Auschwitz. And Surviving Auschwitz, he taught, was it Surviving Auschwitz or another one of his books? He wrote a number of books, but one of the topics that he created basically in the idea of Holocaust studies, and was a very big aspect of my studies in my bachelor's degree, was what we call the gray zone. And the gray zone is this idea that we will do whatever it takes to survive. And you can't judge a person for what they do to survive in these extraordinary circumstances because it's in this gray zone. For example, during the Holocaust, they had a uniform. The prisoners had this uniform, and it included a cap. And sometimes people, like if you lost your cap, you'd get shot. And so what would happen is if someone loses their cap, they're going to steal a cap from another person. And so them stealing that cap causes that other person to get killed, but they survive. And it's this idea that you can't judge this person because their actions led to someone else's death in these extraordinary circumstances.
I think that's really tough. Like part of me, as I hear that, thinks like, it's like when you're really distressed and you act from being distressed. Like we do things we don't intentionally mean, or snap at people we don't intentionally snap. And then like, obviously if you extrapolate that to an extreme, that's like the Holocaust, right? Like you're not even thinking about this other person as a person. You're probably just like, I can't die.
I can't die. So I need to survive in any way.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not, you're not coming from a place of clarity. Obviously it's
you're not coming
clear on surviving. That's it.
You're not coming from a place of malice. You're not, I don't like Billy over there, so I'm going to steal his cap. No, I don't have a cap and I will get shot if I don't have this cap. So I'm going to take the first cap I see, and I don't like, my survival is the only thing that matters right now.
Yeah, your perspective.
That's very interesting in how Viktor Frankl talks about, the survival of the group and working together to survive, and Primo Levi's idea of survival on your own.
I feel like Frankl went the opposite way from what I did read, because I've started it a couple times and I've gotten, I feel like in the hundreds of pages. Like, and then he's like just talk like, he was still a doctor being of service to people in that. And that was his main priority, if I recall correctly, was being of service. Like that was his whole purpose. He even saw in the camp, as he befriended as much as he could some of the Nazis that were in the camp, so that he could continue to help the people who had, I forget the most common rampant disease that people were experiencing.
Probably like typhus.
Yeah, but he was helping them through all of that. And that was like, that's what keeps coming up for me as I hear that. And just thinking about like, that was his commitment versus, I don't think he cared about himself, but he wasn't really very self-centered.
Yeah, no. So it's just these incredible circumstances that come from this, and the ability of humanity to, whether it be to commit these atrocities, to save people from these atrocities, or to save yourself from these atrocities. The stories I've heard of what people had endured during this time, and not just in the Holocaust though, but in other instances, for example, in Rwanda, where people would walk by foot thousands of miles to escape the violence that was going on, the genocide going on there. During the Holocaust, the death marches, where people were as the Soviets closed in on the German territories, they would evacuate the camps and march them through the winter of Poland, which I've been in Poland during the winter. It is cold. This clothing made from cotton. So through the winter, these boots made from wood, and marched them hundreds of miles. And these people's ability to endure this and survive is the humanity of the darkest we can commit, the most righteous things we can do, and our ability to survive is just incredible.
For sure. And I think that's also part of the ability to survive and overcome, just goes back to that hero's journey. Like how much shit can you throw on top of someone before they rise up out of that, and then obviously overcome.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I love about like the anime stuff is, especially of like Naruto and Demon Slayer also, is seeing the good in people. And so Naruto is more of him like kind of changing people, but Tanjiro just seeing the good in the demons after he defeats them, and like having them remember what it's like to be human and care for another person.
Right. Yeah.
And Tanjiro's ability to see the humanity in other people is just incredible, and one of the most beautiful things about Demon Slayer.
I think,
awesome anime, great action sequence, all that stuff. But his ability to see the humanity in other people is what really sets it apart from other things, in my opinion.
I think like with that, and I've heard other people talk about this, like it's it's the fact that they give all the demons that like end backstory the way they do that makes them like, then again, like you're saying, like relatable to us, that they were people, or they are people. There's something else layered on top of that. Like,
but it's, when, like, for example, in the latest season, when they defeat the brother and sister demons, and the demons' heads are screaming at each other and like, how can I be related to someone so weak? How can I be related to someone so ugly? And he's just like, guys, what the fuck? Just remember. And then you get this beautiful flashback story of how much they cared for each other.
I feel like
it's incredible, just the humanity they're able to portray. The demons who are so violent, don't care for human life, and then you give them this beautiful backstory.
I think it's because you understand their understanding of the world is distorted, like as they're demons, right? Like this isn't who they are, it's who they became. And it's just the coming back to like Rui has a very similar thing with his whole family.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
It was the original upper six, I think.
The spiders, yes.
Yeah. But like, no, to your point, 100%. I think the only one that I heard breaks that, and we haven't gotten there yet, is Daki, which no, not Daki, because it's Upper Moon 2.
Who we haven't got yet.
We haven't gotten him yet. He was the one who turned Daki and her brother into demons.
Okay.
It starts with a D. His name also starts with a D, but he shows up at the end and he's in their flashback with how they became them.
Gotcha. Okay.
He's Upper Moon 2.
Okay.
But Upper Moon 1's backstory, again, fucking one of the, like, so fucking good.
All right. So, but yeah, so like the ability to see the humanity of others, and then you get obviously the opposite in Attack on Titan with the othering, and the othering is just there's so much of that in Attack on Titan. And you get that with how Marley treats the Eldians and how they other them and treat them. And then in reversal, and now where you get Eren othering everyone else. And, it's not that they're other people, they're my enemy. They're subhuman.
So I think one of the things that I think of is like Gabby, like, has a super powerful scene when she realizes like they're not the devils aren't on this island. Like she sees.
What was that line? We've been stuck here and we haven't found a single devil, or I'm talking about
like that. Yeah, she realizes like these people that took her in, that literally risked their lives for her.
They protected her. They lied. They knew that she was an Eldian from off the island, and they lied about it. Like, and that's what I'm talking about during the Holocaust. Is people will risk their lives to save someone else just out of the goodness of their heart.
I feel like that's like, to me, that's that is in my model, in my world, like that is human nature. Like, is that it's only the distortion of other things. Like Eren there's so much other stuff with him, because like even some of the, like, I'm not gonna mention it, but like some of the time differences and like his childhood, like there's a lot of questions there, like especially because his character's Titan has a very unique ability. But like that was Zeke's whole thing too, right? Like he became a weapon essentially because like
his father didn't see the humanity in him.
Yeah, his parents saw him as a tool, not a person. And then like that doctor was the only person that really saw him as.
And yeah, exactly. And like I think Attack on Titan does a great job of this idea of othering, to the point actually where Attack on Titan has become this symbolism to this far right white nationalist extremists, where they see themselves as the protagonists, as this group that's being punished for the sins of their ancestors. Like these people that are like, oh, they think it's, oh, everyone's out to get me because I'm white, because I'm of European descent, because of what my ancestors did.
Well, that's kind of what the Jews endured, right? Like too, it was like Germany was dealing with the hardships they were financially to some capacity, and
the idea of Jews having this dual loyalty thing, and they then benefiting from the loss of World War I, led to a huge wave of anti-Semitism in Germany, which led to the rise of Nazism and the Holocaust.
I do think. No, please.
No, you.
No, I just think Eren, like, it was so interesting. His character development's been really interesting, and I still love his character. Like, it's just he's kind of lost himself, obviously, at this point, and some part of that is enjoyable to watch too, because like someone said this to me once, and this was a therapist, like it's cathartic for us to see the villain do things, because like it still speaks to a part of us to some degree. Like maybe we would never want to do that, right? But it's like,
well, so he's been radicalized. He's been radicalized into this idea of the only way for me to survive, for me and my loved ones to survive, is to exterminate, not to win, to exterminate the other. And that's 100% what happens in every atrocity committed. Is we need to survive by exterminating the other. You look at Rwanda, you look at the Holocaust, you look at Bosnia, you look at Cambodia, Armenia, Native Americans. All of that is to win, to survive, we need to exterminate the other. And it's not seeing them as people, it's seeing them as the other.
I feel like that's what's so interesting with like Aaron's character, though, right? Like you went from them wanting to explore the world outside the walls. So like then once they finally get there, he's like, it goes from this place of like exploration, which requires like a more open view of uncertainty and like, you know, the world is like my oyster, to like you're saying, like until everything else is destroyed, we'll never be safe. And it's like,
we won't be free until our enemies are gone.
Yeah, and then Aaron obviously is that, because I just know there's that one scene too where he's on the beach just staring into the horizon. And
he points. He's like that. Yeah. At the end of season 3.
Yeah, like, and it's just one of those things. No, dude, that's crazy. I did not know that with all the other ones, but that I have to now read into like radicalization more, because I'm always really curious with the motifs they bring up in things like anime. And like I said, like when we started this too, the symbolism related to, obviously the Jews didn't do that, but like, yeah, the fact that like Aaron has the ability, like he has the choice too, that he doesn't have to do what he's doing at this current point in the plot. He could choose to, you know, just protect everyone on this island. But that's not the option he's choosing.
Yeah, he's choosing victory through destruction rather than victory through peace or negotiations.
And actually, that maybe this will be interesting to you. Jordan Peterson talks about this too, which is like people want to symbol like virtues, right? Like living virtuously is having the option to do the thing. Like I can hurt you, but I'm not going to hurt you because that would be wrong. Versus someone really weak being like, I don't choose violence. Well, you can't hurt me in the first place, so it's not a virtue. You just can't do the thing. So like it would be like, yeah, like a really powerful leader choosing peace and not using force to, you know, diplomatically deal with the country versus just crushing them by war.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, Teddy Roosevelt always said, speak softly and carry a big stick, but that doesn't really work. You know, when you carry the big stick and speak softly, you're most likely going to wind up in a time of war, as big as Teddy Roosevelt was with neutrality. But when you're faced with conflict and you choose the big stick over, you choose to speak softly and carry the big stick, it won't end well. Whereas if you choose, you know, to see the humanity in another person, to see humanity, be like Tanjiro, don't be like Aaron, be like Tanjiro, man. See the humanity in someone no matter how awful they are. Because if you're able to see the humanity and see the humanity in someone who is a threat, they're no longer a threat because you see them as an equal rather than an other, as a whether they're a foe or not. As long as you see humanity in someone rather than the other, good things will happen. When you view someone or a group of people as the other and don't see the humanity in them, you get tragedy. You get what happened in the Holocaust in Rwanda. You get what happened last week in Buffalo. You get what happened in 2018 at the El Paso Walmart. You get violence when you don't see the humanity and you see the other.
I honestly do think like that's an incredibly, I think this is a really good place to honestly end it, because I think that's just perfect. Like I don't think I have nothing more to add, and I couldn't agree more. So I guess that is something to add. But like, I think that's a really perfect place to end it. So before we stop recording, if anyone wants to connect with you, follow your training, what's the easiest way for people to reach out and find you if you want to be found?
I always want to be found, man. So my Instagram is gefilte lifts. It's play on the traditional Jewish food of gefilte fish, which is that's spelled GEFILTE_lifts. And that's on Instagram. That's my lifting account, my meme account, my sports account. You know, I'm always posting about the Yankees. So that's where to find me. That's where I'm most active.
Cool. Well,
If
thank you.
anyone, if anyone wants to ask me more, I'd be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I know this is like some of it, like the history stuff, especially is your passion. So that was one reason I really wanted us to talk and just get this perspective on stuff I've honestly never heard before. So thank you, dude.
It's my
Appreciate you being on.
Anything for you.
All right, we'll catch up soon.
Absolutely.